Back then, it was a thrill. Not like today, you go to a wall, it's different. You don't feel nothing when you go to a wall. But you go in this yard here, you're gonna feel something, man. That's real. When we see new stuff being done, we see the top to bottom burners, man. That's the stuff that got us out there to go do it again. That would get our adrenaline going. We'd have to go the next day and do something. We'd have to do a piece of burn and try to do it better than the next guy. It was all around us, man. If you lived in this neighborhood, you had to write one time or another. This neighborhood was nothing but graffiti here, man.
We're at Meshulah Parkway and Jerome Avenue. As you can see, the four lines behind me, man. This is the benches we used to hang out and we used to sit down and watch our pieces roll by. Back in the day, you'd have any writer come up here and hang out with us. Sometimes we knock when 67 would be up here. Mitch 77 would come up, Boo 2 would come up here. It's just Mecca of writers. So many writers came out of this neighborhood. Fuzz 1 came out of here. Cope 2 came out of this neighborhood. Mark 98, me, Kid, I came out of here. At one time, Blade was living around the corner hanging out. Comet lived down the block. Just some famous writers just would flock here, man, just to sit on these benches and hang out and just watch the pieces. It was great for us because this was our neighborhood and we would just hang out here and everybody would just talking to each other. But when the train came by, everybody would just stop and turn and look at everything go by. That's what made us go back out there again sometimes. When we see new stuff being done, we see the top to bottom burners, man. That's the stuff that got us out there to go do it again, you know. And that would get our adrenaline going. And we'd have to go the next day and do something. We'd have to do a piece of burn and try to do it better than the next guy. But that's how it was over here. It was like a Mecca of writers, all kinds. This is like one of the most famous spots in the Bronx that the writers were hanging out in. And to my left, behind my shoulder, is Marty's Donut Shop. That is where all the first generation old school writers from Clinton would go up and hang out. Riff 170 and Phase 2 would be up there hanging out, and all these pioneers, man, that started this whole thing, man. They were going up into Marty's Donut Shop, and a lot of guys got lucky because when they were going there and getting their books signed, and you know, to this day, some of those guys still have those books. And you know, they lucked out, man. But this was the spot to be in the 70s, man. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of it and be here at this time in the 70s. And you know, we would just hang out. We were just watching our pieces and doing our thing. And I mean, right to my right was the foreyard. There was Tracy Towers over there. And that's how close the yard was to us, right there by Tracy Towers. And we didn't have to go far the piece. We went far when we went racking up. That's where we traveled a lot. But I mean, to piece, we would go down here, the Tracy Towers, down the block was the D-yard. We had the layup behind me, the layup on Fordham Road. It was all around us, man. If you lived in this neighborhood, you had to write one time or another. This neighborhood was nothing but graffiti here, man. And the most famous writers came out of here. World's famous foreyard. Any writer that was anybody was in this yard. This was a yard where Fuzz 1 would go in. All the MG boys. This was the second home to the MG boys. When you go in here, I mean, this was like our second home, man. We knew this yard inside out. I mean, we got chased by work bums, man. They would throw wrenches at us. We got chased by cops. We'd always find our way out of here, one way or another. I mean, you get raided in here, if you could see in the background, you're inside, man. So you got two choices. You got one choice to hide or to get your ass out of there. This was a yard you didn't want to get raided in, man. There's so many famous writers been in here. Mitch 77, Mark 198, Cope 2, Riff 170, Fuzz 1, MS 161, 9, Billy 167 was in there. You have all these big writers coming down here. Then David Clinton across the street, all those writers were going here, man. It was just like a bunch of writers, man, were going here. And we would find our way in here. We had to get in, this was the fence over here. One time we would climb over the fence, that was one way. Or we go up from the top of the parking lot and jump down to the pipes, throw on the pipes, jump on the train. We would jump from train to train to find out exactly where we wanted to go. We had a clean spot, because back then a lot of the trains were dirty too. Got pieces all over. We had to find something clean too. And we found our way. We would jump from train to train. That's how we would do it. And all these writers, man, they found their way up. And this is a famous yard, man. If you look inside this yard today, to this day, there are tags from 1974, 1975, just all mid-70s writers, man. To this day, they're still in there, man. And just all these writers, man. David Clinton was a famous place for writers, man. They would always come and go.
So this was the school or next to the
This was David Clinton right here, across the street if you want to film it. It's up to you. That was David Clinton right there. That was a high school. At that time, it was only for boys. Now it's boys and girls. But back then, it was for boys, just strictly for boys. Man, when I got raided in here one time, man, we got raided in here and damn, they flushed us out, man. They wanted me to run right out this gate, man. When I stood in here, man, I went under the train, man. I stayed there for 2 hours, man, until everything got quiet, man. I just waited and I got out, man. But they did get me later on because they knew who I was. And that's that. But all fun over here. This was like a good place to be, man, if you were writing back in the day. Behind me, you're looking at the D yard, the INDs. This is one of our yards too we would go by. We were piecing here and all that and got raided in here plenty of times. This yard actually connects into the foyer, and if you look behind me, you can see Tracy Towers, and that was connected to the foyer. Oh, lots of writers went here. TJ 159, you would see Jester's work here. He also wrote DY 167. Peanut 2 and Tracy bombed this line. AG 170 it, Piper. These were all big writers back in the day bombing this line, and man, we got raided in this yard plenty of times, man. We managed to get out of here, man. Every yard we got raided and we got out of it, man. But we got raided in this yard one night, and it got so bad that I was running across the track and the train was 10 feet away from me and almost hit me. I just kept on going underneath the cars and running up the hill. But this was one of the first yards we went to with the MG boys. The MG boys used to have a clubhouse on the Bedford Park station, and we would hang out in the clubhouse, smoke some weed, and just cross the tracks, go down the hill and do our pieces, go back up to the clubhouse and smoke more weed, and just hang out and chill. And that was our youth down here. This was our yard. We were doing our thing back then. But the thing with the D's was, when we were bombing the D's, not too many people know us about for the D's, but we were bombing the D's. I mean, you would just bomb the D's 2-3 weeks later, they were getting buffed, man. It was just like, you see your piece there, I mean, you see part of your piece was getting buffed because they didn't have to paint it. It was all aluminum. They just go and clean it, wash and buff it, man, and bing bang. I mean, the IRTs, they had to paint them, man, so they didn't buff them much. And this yard had a buffer too, which is to my left over there. You see the buffer? It's still here to this day. And which is a maintenance yard. I'd come in this yard sometimes, there were all kinds of trains here. One time I seen the Green 7 train in this yard. You had number lines in here. You had the 6, the 5s, the 3s, the 2s, the 1s, A's, B's, C's, D's, E's, F's. We would catch all lines in this yard, man. We used to call it a Sahua yard because it was carrying all the trains, all the lines. That's because there was a maintenance yard behind me. And that's what we did. We did our thing in this yard. Early on we did it, but then later on we moved to the four-yard because we got sick and tired of just piecing and watching our stuff get buffed. Behind me you see the track leading up to the four line. This is where they would take the four trains. They would take them in this yard and fix them and just run them back up this track here. This was like the side we pieced most of the time because the other side of the yard, there was always some kind of work going on, activity. The maintenance yard was on that side too. So this was the side where we did most of our damage from, man. Behind me, this was like the CC flats. You'd always see them here. Sometimes they have coal mine trains in here. Those old rusty coal mine trains we would see. We'd piece them, but if we had silver, we'd do something on them. You would never do a burn on those things because you never see that. You couldn't see nothing on there. It was just like a brown train, rusty. But to my right, there's a hill. This is where when we were getting raided in this yard, we were always running up that hill, man. That was our getaway right there to the right. That was our getaway. This is where we got away most of the time in this yard. And we also had a clubhouse above. If you look, you see the four line, you see the four train station, that's Bedford Park right there. We actually had a clubhouse underneath that station. And that was a good thing, man, because we just had to go right down. We went down that hill and we pieced, man. It was all fun them days. Back in the days, it was just nothing but fun, just having a good time, man. Just rocking the trains, man. The MG boys, Mark 198, Kid 17, Fuzz 1, MS 161, 9, Billy 167. We all rocked this, man. This was the yard we rocked. Props out to all those guys, man. I started in 1973. I started tagging the streets, even my hallways. My hallways were so bombed, man. I mean, it's just something you had to do. There was just so many writers in the Bronx at that time. I mean, some of them went to the train, some of them stayed on the street, some of them rode a little bit and stopped, but I don't know, something that just made me kept on going. I just loved it, man. And I was starting to hit the buses and the mailboxes. And then I hooked up with a friend of mine in 1974, Mark 198. He kind of showed me everything, man. I went piecing with him. I mean, after that, everything took off, man. I mean, he just showed me how to piece, showed me how to use the paint. Even in a raid, man, I would always try to follow him when we were getting raided. We were pretty tough, man. We were pretty big for our size too, man. I was like about 205 when I was 15. I was able to handle myself, man. But we went into 75, and then that's when we really started taking off, man. And then the MG boys were taking off. We had Hyson with us, Flip 13, East, Tony 13. These were all like the original heads, Fuzz 1. There was all the original MG crew when we were hanging out at McDonald's on 24th Street also. We had 75, 76. 76 is when we were really peaking, man. We were really catching the lines, man. We're known for the four lines, but we were bombing the twos and fives also, man. And the D's behind me, we were getting them all, man. They were all getting hit, man. And the twos and the fives, man, we were going over to Esplanade. We hit Esplanade, Baychester, the two layup. We had a nice sweet layup, Burke Avenue. Like at 77, we just knew about everything, man. We kind of learned the whole thing, man. We had everything, right there for us, man. We were experienced with all that, man. We would go up to the layups and all that. We had no problem. We got comfortable then. We just started taking off, man. 1977, 76, 77 were our best years. I mean, 1976, for every four train that went by, you had to see something from the MG boys. There was either a Market Kid on there, a Fuzz 1, you had a Hyson on there. Hyson was one of the guys that started this crew also, man. He also took me under his wing also with Mark 198. Yeah, Hyson was there, man. He was a big guy, man, and he was a very big influence to me also, man. Hyson and Mark 198, those were the two guys, man, I really looked up to, man. And if it wasn't for them two guys, I wouldn't have kept on. I would have stopped a long time ago, but I went into 78, 79. I slowed down to 78, and it's really like, I was getting more into stuff in the streets and all that. And I would go every now and then. There were still writers coming around. Hey, you want to go? You want to go? You want to go? I got paint. I said, yeah. I mean, I wasn't a racket no more. These writers were coming with paint and offering me to go. So I said, hell with it, man. I was drinking. I was a little high, man. I said, fuck it, man. I'm going to go there, man. I'm going to piece the hell with it, man. So I went all the way up to 80 or 81. I'm not really sure. It was 2 years before the trains turned white is when I quit. But my last piecing days were probably 80, 1980, 81. And I enjoyed every moment of it, man, back then. Back then, it was a thrill. Now, you got an adrenaline rush going in these yards back then. Not like today, you go to a wall, it's different. You don't feel nothing when you go to a wall, but you go in this yard here, you're gonna feel something, man. That's real. That's what I'm talking about. I just want to say a shout out to all the guys that passed on. All the guys that were there with us at the time, and not with us no more. Stim 1, Solid 1, Billy 167, MS 161, 9, Kane 1. Oh, there's so many of them. So many that just passed on. You know, just the ones I forgot, you know, you're still with us, man. We're still keeping this going. This movement is still going, man. So we ain't gonna forget you, man.